Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lorena Sassi. Many of you were here yesterday with us. I represent Scuola Centrale Formazione in the project, whose job is to train the trainers, organize training for trainers for the Italian and Croatian partners who offer vocational training. This is the second meeting of the first module, focused on sustainability. Today, in particular, we will talk about the fermentation technique as a technique that allows you to preserve foods of various origin, plant-based and animal-based, and to use them longer in time and to have product that lasts longer, and also to enhance some properties of the basic food and use it in the kitchen to give our dishes, in addition to interesting nutritional properties, also a richer and more interesting range of flavors. For this lesson, we are connected with our Italian and Croatian partners. And our technical partner for this meeting, we have Casartusi with our two experts, Mattia Fiandaca, gastronomist, and communication manager for Casartusi, and Matteo Milandri, manager of the cooking school of Casartusi. With us, we also have a young expert, Martina Ragazzo, who specializes in fermentation techniques and who will use a few very interesting slides to talk about the principles of this technique, and she will be available throughout the class to answer questions and to give more information. So now I give the floor to Mattia Fiandaca from Casartusi, our consolidated technical partner with which we have a memorandum of understanding for more than 10 years as a legacy of a cross-border project started with Asri and Jasenka, and I give the floor to Mattia. Thank you all. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be the technical partner of this training. After yesterday, we spent in Veneto. Casartusi is a center of food culture. We are in Forlimpopoli, a few kilometers from Forlì, along the Via Emilia, where on the 4th of August 1820, Pellegrino Artusi was born. If you haven't heard of him, Artusi is the writer of the first food book in Italy, recipe book in Italy, a book that marked the national food identity. Its first edition was published in 1891 when Artusi, as a pensioner, not a cook, but for passion, he decided to publish a recipe book from his professional experience as a retailer and trader, and thanks to the recipes that Italian men and women will start sending him to his home. Artusi receives all these letters with recipes. He tests them with his carer, Marietta Sabatini, and his personal cook, Francesco Ruffilli, and put them in the manual. So it's an incredible work, which made the Italian co-writers of this book. And this explains the reason why it is still considered a symbol of our food history, of our food culture. And this maybe explains the reason also why this book is translated in 12 languages of the world, the main European languages, as well as languages from other cultures that are geographically different from Italy, China, Japan, all countries that decided to talk about Italian cuisine through the stories of Artusi. Our cultural center hosts various areas. We have a food library with all the texts of food literature. We have a space for good food culture events, and we have this cooking school where we are now, that is a school for people who are passionate and want to spend a few hours with us wearing an apron and cooking, followed by our cooking masters, and Matteo Milandri is the manager of the cooking school who will hold this training course for you today. You will have the possibility to interact with him. Distance can be overcome thanks to technology. We ask you to participate and interact with us. So we will add more information on Artusi and his values during the preparation of the recipes. But before talking about the two recipes that Matteo chose for us this afternoon, I would give the floor to Martina Ragazzo, the food technologist and expert in fermentation. Since fermentation is the theme of today's meeting, since also our closeness, to talk more about fermentation techniques, because it is a theme that requires precision, so experts should talk about it. So Martina, you have the floor to talk about fermentation techniques. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Mattia and Matteo. I would like to thank Casa Artusi and the organizers of the event for involving me. I would like to share my screen with you with my slides. Can you see them? In this class, we will talk about fermented food, the the great world of products that undergo a fermentation process. I'm Martina Ragazzo, food technologist, specialized in research and development with a focus on fermentation. I have a startup project with other four students, graduated students, and today I will talk about fermentation in detail and specifically. So fermentation is a process of breathing that is activated by organisms which do not have, like human beings, the ability to exchange oxygen through the classic airways, so through lungs, for example. The fermentation process goes in anaerobic manner in the absence of oxygen, even if not all fermentations are like this. Most fermentations are anaerobic, and so this process basically hydrolyzes substances. These microorganisms transform complex substances that they take from their surrounding environment into simpler substances. So these molecules are very long chains linked through bonds. By cutting these bonds, you create energy, and energy is vital for all beings and for our microorganisms that apply the fermentation process to live, to exist, and set up all the metabolic processes they are capable of. So, who uses the energy? Microorganisms, multi or single cells, bacteria and fungi. Fungi can be broken down into molds and in yeast, and they're everywhere. There is no environment in nature that is aseptic, that doesn't have bacteria, fungi, or yeast. So there are many types of fermentation. So you have some main fermentations, lactic fermentation, which you find in cheese, krauts, etc. The alcoholic fermentation for wine and beer, for example. Alcoholic fermentation produces alcohol. So it is the number one player in these products. In the lactic fermentation, lactic acid is produced. The acetic fermentation is an evolution of the alcoholic one, where alcohol is transformed into an additional product or the fermentation, that is acetate, for example, vinegar. Then there are other minor fermentations, propionic, butyric, but the spontaneous fermentations that are not made in a controlled environment, like a lab, are mixed fermentations, because no environment is aseptic and there's no just one type of microorganism. So depending on the stimuli, the fermentations are activated, depending also on temperature, pH, and other conditions. For example, mixed fermentations, there are clearly visible, happen in, for example, kombucha, that is a niche product, and in Lebanon. So why fermenting? There are advantages because there's an improved nutritional profile from the original raw material, because bacteria and fungi in general are able to split these molecules in simpler molecules and do the same job that our gut microbiota would do. The longer duration of the shelf life happens because a stable competitive environment is created without other bacteria or fungi which can compete with the main culture. For example, if we think about bread made out of sourdough starter, and it lasts longer and has advantages. And in terms of flavors, for example, with the soy sauce, you can get more flavor, especially when you develop umami. There's a reduction of waste, because fermentation allows us to convert waste that we have in the kitchen or at home which otherwise would be thrown, would be wasted. While fermenting, you can give a second life to these byproducts. So what do we have to pay attention to? Because fermentation sounds very safe, but there are a few things to pay attention to. It's not a hyper risky process like making jams at home, especially for the disadvantage which could happen if they're not made correctly. The potential risks of fermentation are contamination from pathogenic microorganism, for example, cross contamination with other foods, or because of dirty workplace. Then another risk could be the production of some biogenic and harmful substances or excessive acidification, risk of errors in home preparation with pathogenic contamination and maybe effects, negative effects on health, for example, in allergies with an excess development of sodium, which could harm people suffering from hypertension. How should we reduce risks with the right workplace using clean ingredients and equipment? For example, for ingredients, you could first blanch before fermenting certain foods. In spontaneous fermentations, where the great advantage is that the fermentation is triggered spontaneously. This cannot be done, but there are other strategies to reduce contamination. You should follow the right proportions of salt and reach the right temperature to safeguard from uncontrollable growth of unfavorable microorganisms. All fermented elements should be eaten in moderation because they can lead to digestive problems or sensitivity in some people. And then you should pay attention in storing correctly fermented foods that can be more sensitive to certain parameters. For example, I told you that fermentation happens in an anaerobic environment. If there's an oxygen entering inside um, container of self-fermented vegetables, some unwanted cultures may develop. In the recipes, will be free foods from fermentation with a minor a caveat for fermented black garlic. It is food from Asia. The process takes place in a fermentation chamber, even if you can replicate the same conditions in a more domestic environment. So it takes place in a fermentation chamber at 60-70 degrees for 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the result you want to obtain. The type of fermentation is not a specific fermentation. There's a fermentation. so the microbes develop on the surface of the slices, even if the fermentation doesn't play a primary role in this product. There's an oxidative process involving enzymatic degradation, leading to browning of the cloves and the Maillard reaction. It's the same reaction as when we cook meat at a high temperature, but it happens at a lower temperature for longer time. Sensory characteristics, if you have never tried it, the cloves are black, soft, sweet, and they lose the flavor of fresh garlic. So the flavors reminisces of licorice, balsamic, and tamarind. Then the second food are lacto-fermented carrots. The lactic fermentation here plays an important role. The process takes place in anaerobic conditions, airtight jars or vacuum bags at 1822 degrees for 7 days. It's quite quick. And the lactic fermentation is promoted by lactic acid bacteria, LAB. Sorry, we cannot hear anymore what she's saying. She's frozen, I think. The sensory characteristics are emphasized. The carrots are brightly colored and have a complex and intense flavor with a balance of acidity, sweetness, and umami. For example, in this case, instead of carrots, in view of circular economy, we can use the skins of carrots. Third and last ingredient, soy sauce. Soy sauce is a bit more complex than what we've seen before. It's a fermented product typical of the Asian tradition, especially from Japan and China. The process is quite long because it takes place starting from an initial fermentation step in which koji is produced. It could be rice koji or from other cereals or legumes. Koji is comes from fermenting a mold and any cereal or legume. It appears very spongy, and it is the intermediate step in the process of preparation of soy sauce. So there's initial fermentation with koji, then koji is mixed with soy, water and salt, and it is left to hydrolyze because the second part is not a classic fermentation process, but there's an enzymatic hydrolysis taking place where the enzymes of the initial culture that we had developed through koji split complex molecules into simpler molecules. And they do it for the amino acidic charge. That's why soy sauce is so savory, with a very intense and umami flavor. The fermentation is mixed with the growth and propagation of Aspergillus species plures, because there are many strains of Aspergillus. There's the lactic fermentation, LAB, and an alcoholic fermentation with Saccharomyces species plures. Sensory characteristic: the final mixture has a dark color and a rich, intense aroma with notes of roasted, smoked, caramelized, and fermented cereals in which umami predominates. Consider that soy sauce is only one of the possible outcome of this fermentation, because if you change the elements, if you don't use soy, for example, you can obtain other sauces from different cereals and legumes, like fava beans. In Asia in general, in China and Japan, this product is called shoyu, which is the general term to refer to this fermentation process. That's it from me. I give the floor back to Mattia. For any questions, don't hesitate to ask, sorry. Thank you, Martina. It was a very intense overview. I was very interested, and I got a lot of questions from hearing you. And I suppose our participants also had some ideas. You talked about specific terms, for example, bleaching. Please, can you explain what this technique is? So it's a technique that can be used for the storage of oranges, fresh oranges that we find at the supermarket. It is a thermal bath for a very quick time, a few seconds in boiling water, which disinfects the skin of the oranges, but it can be also done on carrot skins or lemons, which are lacto-fermented. Then, and it can be an interesting technique to prevent uncontrolled fermentations. Thank you. I invite participants who have doubts to raise their hands and ask for the floor, or to write down in the chat box. It's a dynamic interaction. Don't be shy, ask questions. At any time we are available to interact. Yes, of course. Thank you, Martina, for your technical presentation, that we needed to give information on about this world of fermentation that is more and more important and is part of our food culture today. One of the points touched upon by Lorena and Martina was the longer shelf life of the product. That would be important to refer to the book by Massimo Montanari in his book Cibo e Cultura, who explains how humans have tried through technology and science to prolong the life of foods, to always have food at the table. Superseding the concept of seasons and time, and that's what we are going to do today in the kitchen together. Who hasn't spoken so far? Now I'm giving the floor. to tell you what the first recipe today will be. Now I'll be quiet. I don't believe you. Thank you, Mattia. Good afternoon. As Mattia was saying, I will list the ingredients and of today and today's recipes. These are two recipes which are very simple, but which have inside some foods Martina has already explained with their characteristics, which we will combine together to create innovative flavors and contrasts. So let's start from the first recipe. So the ingredients are carnaroli rice, and later I'll tell you the difference between the various types of rice. 24-month-old Parmesan cheese, butter, extra virgin olive oil to taste, salt, sesame seeds, no, sorry, celery seeds. It's a very particular food. And then we will add the main ingredients of this dish, fermented black garlic. Let's start with the preparation of our risotto. First of all, we toast the rice dry. What does it mean? It means that inside our saucepan or pan, depending on what we want to use, we don't add any type of fat. So we don't put butter, we don't put oil, we simply add a pinch of salt. What changes compared to fatty toasting? The fatty base creates a film around the food, and this makes the exchange with the liquid a bit more complex. So with the dry toasting, we dry the rice, removing the moisture inside the pores of the rice open, and they soak better in the liquid. What about putting salt in advance? We do it because then we will simply cook with neutral water. We won't use salted water or broth or soup or flavored liquid, but we will only use salt. It's important that it is put so that it is absorbed. So we will put the rice in the pan. We toast it. In this stage, it's important to use your hands. We really need to feel how warm the rice bean is, so we can understand the degree of toasting. It needs to get to a temperature at which you cannot hold it. Okay, so the grain has to be very hot. So the temperature needs to be quite high. We toast the rice. Matteo, can I interrupt you a second? I'm going to report a question that was asked to Martina. What is the risk for a fermented food to develop botulinum toxin? Yes, I had answered in the chat box. not to interrupt Matteo. There's a risk indeed, even if it's not too big. It depends on an incorrect storage. For example, we lacto ferment and the environment inside the jar is no longer anaerobic. In this case, uh, micro or unwanted microorganisms can be developed or the fermentation process is failed. The pH hasn't lowered adequately and other cultures have developed which can lead to problems including the botulinum toxin. If in your fermented product, lacto-fermented product, strange molds, stains, slime, bubbles form, do not eat it. Not at all. The fermentation process should be as crystal clear as possible. No bubbles, no jelly. There should be only water and vegetables. Thank you, Martina. So have we toasted the rice? Yes. When do we understand it's quite ready to add the liquid? When the rice temperature is very hot, we can start cooking. You see that at this stage, by adding the liquid, the rice foams. So it creates this foam. And from this, we understand that temperature is the right temperature. And right now we start our cooking. So we pour slowly the liquid, we add it gradually. We add a neutral liquid and we need to taste the saltiness of the product. We have put some salt at the beginning, but we will have to keep tasting it to understand how it develops and changes throughout the cooking phase and to understand the level of salt inside. So we have started the cooking. In the meantime, we shall, sorry, we peel our garlic, black garlic. It's a fermented garlic from the Voghera garlic. It's one of the products from Emilia-Romagna, the Italian food valley, because now we have 44 products that have protected origin. So this is the Voghera garlic in the low part of the Ferrara area. We starting from the Voghera PDO garlic that is white, ferments this this type of garlic, creating the black garlic, as Martina said. As you can see from The shot, you see that the clove, garlic clove, is smaller, and the form is the same. The form, the shape of a clove. You cannot touch it since we are connected online, but it's softer also in terms of texture, and it has this sweet flavor. Why did you choose to use it, Matteo, for this recipe? Because of its characteristics. So black garlic has particular flavors. It has a balsamic flavor tending to licorice. So a particular flavor. If you've ever tasted tamarind, it can also be reminiscent of tamarind. So putting it in this risotto, Parmesan cheese risotto, that is a bit fat and round, we add fermented black garlic that we will transform into a cream, and we enhance the flavor and create a contrast with the fattiness of our product. And in my opinion, it makes for a balanced dish. So what are we going to do? We have peeled a few cloves of black garlic. The texture is different from a fresh clove. It is almost candy. It's softer, a bit gummy. And it also, but it still smells very intense. So let's add inside, let's pour inside the jar hot water. So we have our garlic cloves and water, hot water. This is important to soften our product even more. And then we can blend it using the hand blender. I have a quick question. When preparing black garlic, do you add ingredients to transform fresh garlic to black garlic, or is it an engine process? It's Martina, please answer. I was answering because I know the answer. Yes, it's an aging process in under controlled conditions. I don't know if you can hear me because my broadband is not that large. I'm sorry about that. Sorry, no, it's an oxidation process in a controlled environment, so aging. So when eating it, does it have the same effect as a fresh garlic to your breath as well? No, it loses the characteristic, the pungent characteristic of a fresh garlic. So from that point of view, you can still talk to people. Yes, it's a way to overcome reluctance of some people. Absolutely. So we use it in different forms, so both dried, whole, and creamy. It can be used more easily than what we were, because of what we were saying before, because the family of compared to the other products like onions and garlics, lactic acid is lower and the flavor is very sweet. It's not comparable to the use of white garlic used purely. So we have obtained our cream. Now we will show it to you. So the garlic cloves were combined with hot water. So depending on the texture of the cream, you add more water or not. If you want a more liquid cream, we add water. If we want it more robust, we leave it as it is. So let's continue cooking our risotto. And then we have another ingredient for this recipe, which is not common, is the celery seed. Celery seeds, it's also the first time that I use them and that I see them used in the kitchen. So what is the feel of these seeds with black garlic and parmesan? Celery seeds play a very important role. I don't know if you're familiar with them, if you've ever used them. When celery grows and it becomes very big near the end of its life, it blossoms flower, and the flower has some seeds. The seeds are very fresh, very, very fresh. So what we need, its role in this dish is to make it fresher. So we have the fresh part at the bottom that we will put at the base of the dish. Then we will put the Parmesan risotto on top. And on top of that, the black garlic cream. So the freshness of celery seeds, the fatness of the Parmesan cheese, and then the balsamic note of fermented black garlic. Today we have used the cannelloni rice. The cannelloni rice, unlike other types of rice, is a bit bigger, more robust, takes longer to cook than other types of rice, like arborio. And it fits well with ingredients like Parmesan cheese or meat, and because it's easier to chew. The rice is carnaroli, that is another one of our protected geographical indication products, the Po Delta. The Po Delta Park, and it's a very particular type of rice broadly used in northern Italy, even if it's not the main production of rice in Italy. This risotto is also present in Artusi's book, not with fermented black garlic and celery seeds, And since risotto is the symbol of our Italian food culture, and but we share with Croatia. This method of preparation of rice is not common outside of Italy. It's not common to find countries that eat rice in this way, making risotto, even if rice is the most eaten cereal on a large scale. And since it's part of our food culture, Artusi puts approximately 14 recipes, rice recipes in his book in different versions and matches. And there are also many other recipes using rice from southern Italy in the form of flan or desserts. Central and northern Italy uses this type of preparation of the rice, that is risotto. I haven't said it at the beginning in the introduction. This cooking school is not required to do food archaeology. We don't ask people who come to ask us Artusi to prepare the recipes of Pellegrino Artusi to the book, but we ask to read the book, understand the values of Artusi, understand the context in which Artusi was working and was writing his book, and we understand that even if it was the end of the 19th century, beginning of 20th century, you understand why these values were so modern. That's why Casa Artusi managed to create the set of rules, of 10 rules of Artusi cooking. So seasonal cooking, quality cooking, were the characteristics of our cooking Italian cuisine. We try to explain how Artusi cooking can be still very modern. So few ingredients, balanced, which are meeting the philosophy of Pellegrino Artusi. Now we are nearing the end of the cooking. Another thing that I haven't told you is that you have to make sure that all the grains of rice need to remain inside the liquid while cooking, not being on the walls of the pan, because otherwise they won't cook or they will cook differently. And we might have some small grains inside that are not uniformly evenly cooked. Now we continue with creaming that we do not on the stove, not on the fire. So we add butter, fatty material. We also add oil. Is there a reason why you also add oil? Yes, because extra virgin olive oil is acid compared to butter, and it gives a different flavor to the final product. So butter, extra virgin olive oil, a good amount of Parmesan cheese, since it's a Parmesan cheese risotto. You can always adjust at this stage. You can add some cooking water. So the risotto needs to have three main characteristics. Once it's cooked, it needs to be al dente, all'onda, and bavoso. So it needs to meet these three principles. So al dente, you cannot taste it. All'onda means that I'm shaking it, and bavoso means that it's sticky and creamy. You see that it's very creamy. So technically, to standardize the process and reach this result, what do you suggest aside from the amount, quantity of fatty material, butter, Parmesan cheese, oil? So do you have to stop earlier? Yeah, when we remove it from the fire, it needs to be soft. It doesn't have to be fully dry. So we leave it soft. Another important thing. And now we see the action. Once we finish creaming our product, we close it for a minute or two so it rests. We leave it to rest, to relax. It soaks up all the raw materials, and once rested, we plate it. So first, we put the celery seeds at the bottom. So once we put the rice risotto on top, the seeds will spread. You can see the creaminess from the camera. You don't need to shake it or to heat it at the bottom. You just need to move it to recreate the circumference of the dish. And then we complete the dish with the cream of fermented garlic. The quantity of black garlic is very approximate and depends on your personal flavor taste. If you want a greater contrast, we will add more. Now we made a dish that can be standard for all types of palate. Everything can be changed in the kitchen depending on your taste. If you've already prepared a recipe with these ingredients, if you've ever used fermented black garlic or celery seeds from Croatia as well, if you want to talk about your risottos from Croatia, so that we will create this bridge between Italy and Croatia. As Artusi says, he wasn't a cooking professional, he wasn't a cook. He collected the recipes and gave people the opportunity to make their mistakes and to change. And we do the same in the kitchen. There's no absolute truth, there is no dogmas. You can change, make mistake, trying to stick to the sophistication and good taste and simplicity. While we change the ingredients for the second recipe, you can ask questions. In the meantime, if there are questions in the chat box for Martina or some technical questions on fermented foods, we can take the advantage of having Martina here with us. And Martina can also add something about our recipe. I see that in the chat box you're talking about rewatching. We are recording everything so that you can rewatch. I have nothing else to add, but it looks very tasty. Don't pay too many compliments to Matteo, otherwise it will go to his head. I regret it because yesterday we were in person and I could taste everything. Today I will remain curious. So I invite you to try it at home. Once you are free at home in your stalls, you can try it, or you can come to Forlì Popoli, to Casa Artusi, to visit our facility. If there are no additional questions, let's read the list of ingredients for the second recipes. So duck, fermented carrot sticks, and velvet puree. So we have duck breast, we have rosemary, sage. You can add bay leaf, thyme, all the aromatic herbs that you prefer. We will use butter, extra virgin olive oil, carrots, which are the highlight of our dish. We both have carrots, normal carrots and fermented carrots. Then we will add soy sauce, lemon juice. We will also use vegetable stock. I will explain how to make it. It's very interesting because you use all the waste vegetables to make it. So you can have celery waste, carrot skin waste. You toast them in the oven at 200 degrees for 10-15 minutes, depending on the quantity of material. It needs to be brown, very dark. Once it's ready, you soak it in cold water and then leave it to cook for 2-3 hours. Once it is reduced by 2/3, we remove the vegetables from inside and we reduce even more our stock, adding soy sauce and adjusting with some lemon juice. We talked about it yesterday. It's a sensitive topic with reference to the ingredients that we use in the kitchen. So finding tricks to save everything, which is part of our culture. We lost them because we live on the right side of the world, but our grandparents wouldn't waste anything. Today it's important to do it to respect ingredients and raw materials and for sustainability, but also to control the food cost. Everything that may look like waste is still something that we have bought. You can make a vegetable broth for the recipes. We find tricks to save. Yes, it's important, as you were saying, at this moment in time, where it's important to pay special attention to cost saving and enhancing potential waste is economically advantageous. So let's cut the carrots. So we make them very thin to cook them more rapidly. It's just a matter of time. So I've used everything, also the skin, which is edible. So let's put a large dollop of butter. And then we are about to brown the carrots. It's an important part of the recipe because we remove all the water by evaporation and we we concentrate the flavors by browning the product. The amount of carrots looks big, but once we're ready, the volume will be reduced. Now we put inside, we put a pinch of salt. Compared to many other cooks, you put salt at the beginning. One of the main reasons is that at this stage, salt helps to draw water osmotically. Okay, so we put butter, carrots, salt, and we leave everything to brown. The time changes. It could take 20 to 40 minutes depending on the quantity of product that we have in our saucepan. Do you add water? No. No, we'll leave it to dry as far as we can. There will be a moment where it won't be possible to continue cooking, but we try to concentrate the flavors. Yeah, so by osmosis, the water will go out, drawn by the added salt. That's correct. Now, let's, in the meantime, prepare our duck breast. We have duck breast. Is it a meat cut that you use in Croatia as well? Is it common in your recipes as well? You can use the chat box to answer if you don't want to unmute your microphone. Don't be shy. It will be interesting to exchange information despite the distance. You can take advantage of the fact that we are live and not recorded. In many Italian regions, duck breast is used and spread. We prepare it as Matteo was doing. We leave the skin that has the fat part during cooking. So what type of meat is it? Duck is considered a yard animal. So aside from the skin that is quite fat, the meat is lean. It doesn't have a lot of fat. It is easy to digest, so fit for everyone. And it's very important to cook the breast, because if we cook too much, it gets very hard, dry, and we risk having a product that is not adequate. So now what are we doing with the skin? We cut into it so that the heat penetrates, and in the central part it will be easier to cook. You're not obliged to do it, but it makes things easier during cooking. So I dried the meat well. It's important not to have free liquid around the meat, because now we're going to season it, and it's important that all ingredients stick to the surface. So what are we going to put? Salt, pepper, oil, extra virgin olive oil. It's very important to massage it so that it absorbs the ingredients. So the pan needs to be hot. On which side do you put it? On the side of the skin. First we brown this part so that it melts the fat that we need during cooking, especially because the skin protects our meat, which is not in direct contact with the muscle on this side. Yes, it's quite hot. So we can put some butter. Yeah, you don't really need the butter. I only need it to add some flavor, and also because it will be useful for the cooking. So I put butter and herbs. So you need first to brown it right on both sides. You've learned some cooking. It's thanks to you. You are a well of knowledge. So we brown from the side of the leather, oh, the skin, sorry. It needs to be looking very brown. Then we seal the fillet on the opposite side. And then we start topping our product. So it's a really beautiful breast. So in terms of quantity, it depends on the dimension of the product. In this case, in case the product was big, depending on whether it's a wild duck or not. So these are all bred ducks, and meat has changed a lot from when Artusi wrote about that. Course, even if the values of Artusi still remain, the ingredients have changed a lot, as well as the organoleptic characteristics. It's up to us, people or trainers, people revolving around the world of cooking, to seize the tips of Artusi and adapt them to current conditions. That's the only way to allow the tradition to keep surviving. It becomes a common value in the community. It survives the changes of time, and only by cooking do people allow these recipes to survive and become traditions. So we added some lemon zest. So it takes a while before you turn it, since it's very thick. So 3/4, half. I don't know if you can see from the camera. Yes, now that it is brown gold, we turn it It's light brown. So we put the herbs, the zest. If you want to use pepper, you can. You can use whatever you prefer to give it flavor. You can use fragrant pepper. There's no limit to what you can add to flavor it or to spice it. Don't be afraid to use butter. Be generous with butter. So I'm a Piedmont man. It's sorry, there's a comment in the chat box that I would like to read. They talk about female ducks. Gianpietra, can you explain the comment? Can you hear me? Gianpietro from the Casa del Giovane. I used duck breast at the restaurant and we looked for female duck breast because they're softer and bigger, just like chicken. So it is actually a nice duck breast. I think it's female. Yes, you're right. It's not easy to find this type of breast in stores. Not everyone has it available. And female duck breast is softer and more tender. So this is topping. You top the breast with the cooking liquid. So we soak our product in warm fat. In this way, our cat keeps cooking. We don't only have the contact of the heat from the bottom of the pan, but also from the top. So we try to soak the higher parts of our breast. So if we have a duck breast where the thicker part is at the center, we try to soak it more consistently because it will take a bit longer to cook. It's a cut that can be used raw. Rare, sorry, compared to white meat. It's not a problem to eat it rare, like the red meat. So we continue topping it. If you see that the butter, for any reason, because it's been on the fire for a while, it starts coloring and becoming too golden or hazel or brown, we lower the temperature of butter by adding a drop of extra virgin olive oil. So we lower the temperature of the fat, and we can keep topping. There's a question on carrots. Where can you buy fermented carrots? Is it easy? Are they easy to buy? Are they only artisanal productions? I found them from small shops, niche shops, where they sell organic vegetables, fermented vegetables, chains of supermarkets that sell biodynamic, organic, plant-based, vegan products. Yeah, you need to be a good expert. You don't need to improvise with fermentation if you want to do it at home, because there are risks. You need to study and follow the techniques as Martina described them. Yeah, I would like to add, yes, you need to do things by the book. You don't need to be experts, otherwise you never start. Yeah, but we all have to study a bit. Is there a less dangerous type of fermentation? Potentially, toxins could develop, including botulinum toxin. So it's not free from risks. But like with all fermentation, it is fermentations. It's clear when it's failed, and then you usually do not eat a whole jar of these foods per meal. So risks are limited. So zero risk doesn't exist. There are a few fermentations which are easier to do at home. For example, many people at home have prepared kefir starting from milk and some kefir granules. In that case, fermentation is simple because you add kefir to milk and you obtain the drinkable kefir. Then there are longer processes in terms of times. So you should distinguish spontaneous fermentations from forced fermentations. Mattia, you are talking about the forced fermentation. So I inoculate the kefir grains in milk, whereas carrot fermentation is spontaneous. Okay, excellent. Are we ready to blend? Okay, we take a Bell blender and we put our carrots that we cooked with butter and a pinch of salt with no added liquid. So I would like to show you that I have removed the duck from the stove and I let it rest with the cooking, the fat from the cooking But it's important that it rests 5-10 minutes before cutting our piece of meat, so all the liquids inside redistribute uniformly. And when we cut it, there's less risk of liquid leaking. Can you tell us what are the genetic characteristics of the fermented carrot? The product, the color remains bright. The flavor is a bit umami and acidulous, but it also keeps some sweetness. Giampiero, you have a question? Giampietro? Yes, I have a question for Martina because you talked about high risk from making jams. What is the risk for jams? I was talking about high risk in relationship to the danger of botulinum toxin when the jam is not sealed correctly. In that case, so basically preserves, if the procedures are followed, are very safe. However, if you don't pay attention systematically and methodically to the procedures of preparation, the risk is very high. And botulinum toxin has a lethal effect at very low doses. That's why the risk is very high, because it's lethal. Because I always thought that botulinum was more risky for oil preparations, but it can develop also in preserves. Yes, especially if you haven't reached the pH target. And if the mixture is no longer vacuumed, can be a problem. So I checked in my basement. I have some jams from 2022. So I have fig and apricot. If I open them, they're still nice, they're still tasty. So they're still vacuumed. Yes, homemade. I've been making them for 20 years because I worked in the field for 20 years. Yeah, it's not a problem of shelf life. If the toxin develops, it can develop after 3 months or 2 years. So if you're vacuumed, there's no risk of development of botulinum. So we put carrots in our blender. We add neutral water. And we start blending. It will soak all the liquid because we dry the product. Okay, maximum capacity. So we add liquid until our product is smooth and homogeneous. So we finished. Let's see the texture that is similar to puree. It's a cream. We've cooked carrots blended with neutral water. While Martina was giving her explanation, we added a few pieces of fermented carrot so that the flavor will be pleasant. So we put it in the cream and then we will put it on top of our dish. So now let's add a drop of soy sauce and a drop of lemon juice. So what will these two products add to our puree? The soy sauce will have a taste of umami, a savory taste to a sweet product like carrot, and the lemon will correct and will add an acid part, making our sauce more balanced. So let's add these two products, put the lid on, blend it a little longer. Okay, let's taste the preparation. And now on to the last step, finishing the dish. So we take our fillet. We dry it. We remove the herbs, but we don't need any more. And now we cut it to see the cooking of our breast. Here we can decide to cut it in different ways. Today we do it diagonally. So making slices. And you see that it's rosy inside. I don't know if you can see on the chopping board, our cut of meat doesn't uh, lose any type of liquid. The liquids are inside our cut. Had we cut it immediately away from the fire, we would have found a pool on top of our board. As I told you earlier, it's important to let it rest. So what now? We melt the vegetables with so-called waste to stress that from waste preparations can be born to enhance our dishes. So it's similar to what we did with the soy sauce on the carrot sauce. Yes, it intensifies the flavor of our preparation, the taste of our preparation. We can prepare the vegetable saute that takes a lot of time to prepare. You can always store it for it to be generous when you make it so that you can store it for when you need it. So let's plate it. As for the previous recipe, there are very few ingredients, excluding the fat, salt, pepper, and oil. The ingredients can be counted on in one hand, and this is the model of Italian cuisine that we want to promote pure, high quality ingredients linked to the territory and the season, which balance each other. A fine cuisine, affordable in a vertical and horizontal filter. We always say that Italian cooking has always been contaminated, has always been blended horizontally and vertically, both nationally and locally. The middle class cuisine always looked at popular cuisine. So it's important to describe the complexity of Italian cuisine, which is candidate to become UNESCO heritage, intangible heritage. It enhances the biocultural diversity intrinsic to the characteristics that we mentioned when talking about our cuisine. And moments like this of training or preparation of these recipes are an example of this. There's another question in the chat. At how many degrees at the heart was the meat cooked? And can you repeat how you ferment the carrots? So the first question for Matteo, second for Martina. In this case, we didn't use a thermometer. I cooked it by sight. But for this type of meat, you can cook at 55 degrees at the heart so that our product is not too dry and remains rosy. As for the fermentation process, it's very simple. You skin the carrots. You can do some blanching, the quick boiling in hot water. Then you make brine with 5% salt. You put the carrots in the jar, cover them in brine and sealed and vacuum packed by boiling into the pan. Or you can do it in vacuum bags. Is there a difference between the vacuum machine and vacuum cooking? Generally, the vacuum bag would be better. It's also easier to do. It's less complicated. You put the brine and the carrots. So the three key criteria are the hygiene of the ingredients of the bag, the concentration of brine and vacuum, and the cleaning of the hands. Don't handle correctly. Clean hands and hat. It's very different if you eat it after 3 months or 1 year. Does the flavor change? Lacto fermentation is very short in general, up to 10 days. Then you can store it for a few months in the fridge. But I wouldn't give too long of a shelf life because there are other chemical processes on the flavor and color. Are there other questions? We have a few minutes left to talk about our two recipes. So cooking using fermented products. Fermentation is a broad world. It's part of us, of our cuisine, maybe fermented products less and less, not more and more, for the new food trends, new products, focus on nutrition, the principles of health that we saw are connected to the fermented products, as Martina told us. So we added a few elements to products that are already part of our food culture today. If the Croatian partners wish to ask questions in the chat box in English or in Croatian, we can use Google Translate to translate. Don't be shy. Tell us about your food culture in Croatia. Do you use fermented products? Are they used in restaurants in Croatia? While we wait for the ice to break, I want to add something. I finished the dish by adding the plant-based saute on the meat. We added some salt flakes, and on the puree we scaled some slices of fermented carrot and some leaves of sage as decoration. So we used the fermented product both inside our puree and on it. So we gave some freshness and some acidity to our dish to help us finish it more pleasantly. So we invite you to come visit us at Casartosi. You're only seeing the cooking school, but there's more. We have 20 individual workstations fully equipped to cook with our cooking masters, and then with our ladies who teach how to make the typical Romagna piadina. So you can have cooking classes on our typical traditional food from Romagna. I know that there will be a questionnaire. First, I have another question because I'm very curious and I was wondering how adding a trendy ingredient because I read often that in drinks and dishes the fermented flavor is trendy. So can this fermented flavor be an added value in the marketing? So maybe would the dish be more expensive by adding an innovative ingredient, or would it cater to a target that looks for exotic maybe with soy sauce or fermentation processes? So in terms of marketing, approaching this type of product in the menu maybe could be competitive. Then we also have a comment from Croatia. So I wouldn't say that the dish would become more expensive. But we are used to offer foods in more traditional techniques. The fact that we add fermented products in the menus could be an added value in terms of flavor and knowledge to introduce different forms of food. It can have an added value, which allows it to take a leap in quality. It allows the curious client to learn more. And all this triggers a mechanism of curiosity to the product and to the world of fermented products, as is happening right now. That's correct. Then adding fermented elements or other ingredients justifies maybe a higher cost for the price compared for the product and for the dish compared to more conventional products. So if people look for it, they're ready to pay more for that dish, to try that new element and trendy element. We have a comment from Croatia saying we often use sauerkraut in traditional Croatian cuisine. Forgive my pronunciation, that is not the best. And sour cabbage. I think the typical krauts, Martina. Yes, I think so. Sauerkraut, I think, are the classic fermented um, krauts, typical of uh, South Tyrol. What type of fermentation is it? Lacto fermentation in brine. I don't technically know all the passages of fermentation for sauerkraut because industrially it's a long process, but I'm sure that it's a lacto um, fermentation. They say that in Friuli they have the same tradition. What are they served with in Friuli, Venezia Giulia? The sauerkraut. How do you present them with? What other dishes? Okay, so we see that boiled meat. Yes, these influences between board places at the borders are very strong. And we said it yesterday with Croatian partners, the Adriatic Sea. unites us and has always been a bridge of products and recipes across borders. Then we have another message from Gian Pietro. In some marketplaces in Vicenza, I see that small companies sell fermented products of any type. Lorena, you can go to Vicenza to shop. It's very easy from Bologna. As soon as it stops raining, I will arrange the trip. Other questions? Lorena, do we have a questionnaire to share to end our training? To have some answers from our participants. Yes, we have prepared a short questionnaire from Mentimeter, an online tool. We have a slide for access, or I can put it in the chat box. Do you see it on our screen? Please nod or show the thumb up because we're seeing it. I hope you are too. You see the QR code? Yes. That's what I write. We have prepared a few questions. How do I share our screen so we could see the answers? I try to share screen. Yes, because we cannot see the screen. We cannot see the questions. And we cannot see the answers. Sorry, I stop screen sharing. Okay, now we're about to collect the answers and we will share them with you. I hope I could share my screen, but I cannot. I'll try to do it. And now we can see the answers. Only one person has answered. Let's see if someone else does give answers. Okay, we have 4 answers. We have 5 answers. Is it anonymous? No, but I said it, but I will answer not useful at all. Only 7 people have joined the platform. Can we put picture in picture? 9. I put the link in the chat box for those of you who don't have the QR code. Yeah, you can click on the link in the chat box. So we won't stop share screen. Sorry, yeah, well, it was a joke. It wasn't anonymous. We saw those ones. They're not useful at all. We know your names. I think it was Martina. Yes, I'm hacking into the system right now. Okay, next question. For 10 people, it's very useful, so thank you. We would like to confirm that many regions are covered in Italy, from Apulia to Friuli Venezia Giulia to Veneto, Lombardy. And from the Croatian coast, we have Istria and Dubrovnik territory, Neretpro. So one last question. In your language, you can use 3 words to define the training. So if you attended yesterday as well, please make an overall comment, including yesterday's meeting. You can answer in Croatia is the perfect moment to learn a new language. Okay, we write down the Croatian word and check if they're positive. I know one, dobro, which means good, unless they say the opposite. I have a question. Is it the first time that you do training for trainers online? Please use the chat box to answer. I know that some of you have already done it online, but since we have many people here, please let us know if this is the first time that you attend online and if you have any suggestions to improve their performance. Thank you for your help, for your attendance. Let's see if we have more comments. Otherwise, I would stop sharing. And if you want to take a group picture, we can take it now. In the meantime, if we have other comments or questions, we can answer. I invite you to turn on your camera so we will feel a bit closer even from far away. Before we have the opportunity to meet in person. I would like to thank Scuola Centrale Formazione and all the partners for today's and yesterday's opportunity to give us the opportunity to tell our story, our values through these recipes that Matteo has prepared for you. We're always very pleased to spread the history of Pellegrino Artusi because for many it can be a model to feel at home in a professional kitchen. Which is also family cooking. If you haven't bought Artusi's book, I invite you to read it and learn Italian history through Artusi. There are many trivia on our food identity. We like with this collaboration because it allows us to link cuisine with food as a cultural aspect. So I've already been to Croatia, Istria, and Dubrovnik, and I've seen how they pay a lot of attention to preserving and enhancing their culture. So we feel close, attaching importance to food as a vehicle to disclose the territory to a visitor. This was lesson number 2 of our path that is broken down into 2 modules. Module 1 is not over with this second meeting. We will give handouts and materials that can be exchanged, not at the same time, which touch upon some of the topics covered in these 2 days. With these meetings, hopefully we gave you some stimuli to start training your students. We will continue with more meetings for the second module on the food choices linked to intolerances, allergies, and choices of eating choices, which can be linked to health or sustainability. The next two meetings will be on the 9th and 10th of April online, and then we will meet in September. If you start training your students, please choose a class that will be doing training next fall as well. It will be easier to involve them in an exchange that we are organizing for students. Thank you. Let's take a picture all together. There's a fantastic camera upside down of Civico, so I will make a screenshot because I want to have them forever head down. Allora, vi faccio vedere anche io. I would like to thank you all you friends who are connected from all territories, and see you soon. Thank you, Casartusi, Matteo, Mattia, Martina, and the technical service. Thank you all. Bye.